Exam 3 Study Guide. Hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. The hypothalamic hypophyseal tract is a bundle of axons that project from the hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary gland. The cell bodies of the axons are responsible for projecting oxytocin and ADH down to the posterior pituitary gland. The paraventricular nucleus is responsible for the oxytocin, and the supraoptic nucleus is responsible for the ADH. The bundle of axon that projects from the nucleus to the axon terminal is the hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. Renin-angiotensin system, ACE inhibitors, and AT1 antagonists. The RAS system is a steroid system. Aldosterone is regulated by the renin-angiotensin system. The stimulus is a decrease in blood volume and blood pressure in the kidney. A population of cells called the juxtaglomerular cells, the JG cells, will detect this decrease. Those cells are stretch receptors. In response to the decrease in blood volume and blood pressure, the JG cells release renin, which is an enzyme. Angiotensinosin ANG will be acted upon by renin, and this will form angiotensin 1 decapeptide. Angiotensin 1 will travel to your lungs, and your lungs produce angiotensin converting enzyme, which is also known as ACE. ACE will convert ANG1 to ANG2, which is an octapeptide. ANG2 goes to the zona glomerulosa and tells it to release aldosterone. And aldosterone will cause sodium and water retention, and that which will increase blood pressure and blood volume. ANG2 will go to the hypothalamus to tell the posterior pituitary gland to release ADH, and ANG2 will also go to the smooth muscle cells of our blood vessels, bind to the AT1 receptor, and will stimulate contraction because of low blood volume and blood pressure. ACE inhibitors are drugs that act on the RAS system. They are captopril, endopril, and lisinopril. They block the conversion of ANG1 to ANG2. Losartan is an AT1 antagonist. It prevents ANG2 from binding to the AT1 receptor. Hypothalamus anterior pituitary axis. So there's the hypothalamus, the anterior and pituitary, endocrine target hormones, and non-endocrine target hormones. So the prolactin releasing hormone and the prolactin inhibitory hormone. Prolactin, mammary gland. Next column. Corticotropin releasing hormone, ACTH, adrenal cortex, cortisol, multiple target cells. Next column. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, luteinizing hormone and facilitating hormone, testes and ovaries, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, multiple target cells. Next column. Thyroid releasing hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, thyroid gland, T4 and T3, multiple target cells. Growth hormone, next column, growth hormone releasing hormone, growth hormone inhibiting hormone, growth hormone, liver, insulin growth factors, multiple target cells. Then we have the growth hormone, long arrow to the multiple target cells with arrow to the side, and it's regulating metabolism. What is the functional connection between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary gland? The functional connection is the hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system. It is a vascular connection. The hypothalamic hormones released into special blood vessels. It's called the hypophyseal portal system. The hypothalamic physeal portal system consists of capillary plexus, primary and secondary, and innervating hypophyseal portal veins. When stimulating hypothalamic neurons secrete releasing and inhibiting hormones into primary capillary plexus. 2. Hypothalamic hormones travel through portal veins to the anterior pituitary gland. In response to releasing hormones, the anterior pituitary gland secretes hormones into the second capillary plexus. Picture. So there's the hypothalamus, and it has 4 of the hypothalamic neurons that synthesize releasing and inhibiting hormones, projecting to the anterior pituitary gland. And then there is the superior hypocell artery is at the top, and coming out of the bottom is the growth hormone, TSH, ACTH, FSH, LH, and prolactin. And then at the bottom, we have the secondary capillary plexus, and the hypocell portal veins is in between the plexus. And the hypothalamic neurons, the inhibiting neurons is the growth hormone releasing hormone, growth hormone inhibiting hormone, thyroid releasing hormone, corticotropin releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, and PIH. Detailed mechanism of action of water-soluble hormones versus liposoluble hormones. Water-soluble hormones. The hormone binds to the surface receptors that are embedded within the plasma membrane. The HRC will form when hormone binds to the receptor, and it will activate a signal transduction pathway. The signal transduction pathway involves when we convert an extracellular signal into an intracellular signal. The extracellular signal is the first messenger. It acts through a second messenger system because water-soluble hormones cannot come into the cell directly, being that they are not lipophilic. Examples that use this is epinephrine, norepinephrine, glucagon, parathyroid hormone, growth hormone, ADH, oxytocin. The intracellular cell is the second messenger system. The messenger system includes cyclic AMP, PIP2 calcium, and tyrosine kinase. Liposoluble hormones. The hormone is released into the circulation. Hormone is coupled to transprotein 3. Hormone dissociates from transprotein and will diffuse to the cell. 4. Hormone binds to the nuclear hormone receptor, causing a hormone receptor complex. Hormone receptor complex will bind to a hormone response element. Hormone receptor complex will function as a transcription factor, and it will activate/inactivate 3 particular genes. We will then get our pre-mRNA, which will go to the RNA processing, and this happens inside the cell. 6. After processing, the mRNA is exported out to the nucleus of the cell into the cytoplasm to interact with ribosomes. 7. We synthesize a new protein by translation, which will cause a hormone-specific response. The genes that are used with aldosterone when it's using the mechanism for liposoluble hormones is the sodium ion channel is activated to bring in sodium in. Gene 2 is the sodium potassium pump. It activated so that the sodium that come in can be pumped out into the blast bubble, and the potassium will be pumped into the cell. The gene 3 is calcium ion channel. It's activated so that the calcium can influx into the filtrate to be excreted. 3 ways the endocrine gland can be stimulated to release a hormone. Humoral, hormones that change the solid concentration of your blood. Examples is the release of glucagon and parathyroid hormone. Hormonal hormones that are stimulated to release by another hormone. Example is ACTH releasing cortisol and TSH releasing T4 and T3. A hormone release caused by neural input is the release of norepinephrine and epinephrine. Cyclic AMP and PIP2 calcium second messenger system. Cyclic AMP second messenger system. Formation of a hormone receptor complex. The hormone receptor complex will induce a conformational change. 3. G protein link binds to and activates G protein. GTP replaces GDP. GTP will phosphorylate the G protein. 4. Activation of the G protein will cause alpha subunits to dissociate from the beta cell. Beta and gamma subunits. Alpha subunit will bind to effector enzyme, which is adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase binds to substrate, which is ATP. ATP is produced into cyclic AMP. Inside the cell, cyclic AMP will activate protein kinase, which is already in the cell. One cyclic AMP can activate multiple protein kinase. A single protein kinase can phosphorylate multiple intracellular proteins, and phosphorylating intracellular proteins, we turn some of them on and turn others off, and which will cause a hormone-specific response on the target cell. PIP2 calcium second messenger system is number 1, formation of hormone receptor complex. 2, hormone receptor complex will induce a conformational change in the G protein link receptor. 3, G protein link receptor will bind to and activate G protein. GTP will replace GDP. 4, GTP will phosphorylate the G protein. 5, alpha subunit will dissociate from beta and gamma subunit and will bind to the effector enzyme, which is phospholipase C. Phospholipase C will activate our phosphatidylinositol diphosphate substrate, which is the PIP2, and that will divide into diacylglycerol, which is known as DAG, and inositol triphosphate, which is IP3. DAG will act on our protein kinase C, and protein kinase C will phosphorylate into intracellular proteins, which will turn some proteins off and some proteins on. This will cause a hormone-specific response on the target cell. 8, IP3 will diffuse within the cytoplasm of the cell, and it will bind to the IP3 receptor that is associated with our endoplasmic reticulum. This will activate calcium ion channels, and we will have influx of calcium from the endoplasmic reticulum to the cytoplasm. Increase in cytoplasmic levels will tell the cell to do something. 9, calcium will bind to our catecholamines and will activate a protein kinase, and the protein kinase will phosphorylate intracellular proteins, causing a hormone-specific response. Organs with secondary endocrine function. Pancreas. Its primary function is to release digestive enzymes such as lipase, amylase, and protease. Secondary function is to produce and release insulin and glucagon. Kidneys. Primary function is to filter your blood plasma and eliminate waste, excess water, and solids in the form of our urine. Secondary, it produces and releases erythropoietin. The heart. Its primary function is to eject blood to cells of the body. Its secondary function is to produce and release H2 natriuretic peptide. Hypothalamus. It regulates the medulla oblongata as the primary function. Secondary, it produces the hormones that is released to the posterior pituitary gland. It is called the neuroendocrine gland. Parathyroid hormone. It is made with 31 amino acids. It is produced and released by the chief cell of the parathyroid gland. It plays a key role in calcium levels and increases calcium levels. The target cell of PTH are the bones and kidneys. Function of the extracellular calcium involved within the PTH. Extracellular calcium plays a key role in blood clot formation, so you do not bleed to death. It plays a key role in muscle contraction of the smooth and cardiac muscle, and is involved in secretion of certain chemicals. Release of PTH. When PTH is released, it will travel to our bones, specifically to the osteoblasts, and the osteoblasts will tell them to decrease osteo release and release a chemical called osteoproligin ligand. OPGL will bind to the osteoclast, and it will stimulate the activity to break down bone, which releases calcium and phosphate. PTH will also be released to our kidney and will activate proteins by way of the cyclic AMP second messenger system. The cyclic AMP second messenger system will stimulate reabsorption of calcium and excretion of potassium. Homeostatic imbalances. Hyperparathyroidism. It is the hypersecretion of PTH that will cause hypercalcemia, and following hypocalcemia, there will be a formation of kidney stones and depression in the nervous system, often caused by parathyroid gland tumor. The symptoms is bone softens, deform, and demineralize. Hypoparathyroidism is a hyposecretion of PTH. It will cause hypocalcemia. It most often follows parathyroid gland trauma or removal during thyroid surgery. Hypocalcemia, it makes neurons more hypocalcemia. It makes neurons more excitable, causing symptoms such as tingling sensation, tetany, and convulsions. Phosphodiesterase. It is an enzyme which breaks down the phosphodiesterase diester bond in an oligonucleotide. Pheochromocytoma is a medullary chromophore cell tumor caused by hypersecretion of catecholamines. Symptoms include uncontrolled sympathetic nervous system activity, increased metabolic rate, and hypertension. Addison's disease is the hypersecretion of both glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. Symptoms is weight loss, decrease of sodium levels, hypertension, and dehydration. Cushing's disease is caused by ACTH, pituitary releasing tumor. Symptoms include high blood pressure, weight gain, and thickening of skin, eyes, and bones. Aldosteronism is the hypersecretion of aldosterone. It results from adrenal tumors, results in hypertension and edema due to excessive sodium and water retention, and accelerated excretion of potassium. Graves' disease is a hyperthyroid pathology. A person makes abnormal antibodies direct against thyroid follicular cells. These antibodies paradoxically mimic TSH and continuously stimulates TH release. Symptoms include elevated metabolic rate, sweating, and nervousness. Pituitary dwarfism. It is a growth hormone deficiency in children that slows down bone growth. Individuals are no taller than 4 feet but have fairly normal body proportions. Symptoms are below average growth, chubby body build, and immature appearance. Acromegaly is excessive growth hormone that is secreted after the epiphyseal plates have closed. It is characterized by overgrowth of bones of the hands, feet, and face. Some symptoms include enlarged hands and feet, thickened lips, and lower jaw may begin to protrude. Gigantism. Hypersecretion of growth hormone in children. Person becomes abnormally tall, often reaching a height of 8 feet, but has normal body proportions. Its symptoms are such enlarged heart, excessive sweating, and double vision. Diabetes insipidus. It is an ADH deficiency when insulin deficiency causes large amounts of blood glucose to be lost in the urine. It is marked by intense thirst, a huge urine output. It can be caused by pituitary tumor or by belonging to the head that damages the hypothalamus or posterior pituitary symptoms. Symptoms include excessive thirst, large amounts of pale urine, and increased urine output. Diabetes mellitus is a result from either hypersecretion or hypoactivity of insulin. When insulin is absent, the result is type 1. If insulin is present but its effects are deficient, the results is type 2. Symptoms include polyuria, which is a huge urine output that decreases blood volume and causes dehydration, which then causes polydyspepsia, which is excessive thirst, and polyphagia, which refers to excessive hunger and food consumption. Cushing's syndrome, a disorder caused by excessive production or administration of glucocorticoid hormone, typically resulting in conditions such as diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and osteoporosis. Syndrome of inappropriate of ADH. Hypersecretion of ADH. SIADH is marked by retention of fluid, headache, and disorientation due to brain edema, weight gain, and decreased cellular concentration in the blood. SIADH can cause high blood pressure because water isn't going to be released. Increased water volume equals increased blood volume and blood pressure. Synthesis of thyroid hormone. Number 1, thyroglobulin is synthesized and discharged into the follicular lumen. 2, iodine is trapped and actively transported in. 3, iodine is oxidized to iodine. 4, iodine is attached to tyrosine and colloid, forming DIT and MIT. 5, iodinated tyrosines are linked together to form T3 and T4. 6, thyroglobulin colloid is endocytosed and combined with the lysosome. 7. Lysosome enzymes cleaves T4 and T3 from thyroglobulin, and hormones diffuse into the cell. 3 major functions of the thyroid hormone is it increases basal metabolic rate, initiate growth in children and in infants. It is critical for development. Summary of regulation of the pituitary hormones. Oxytocin acts on the uterus to stimulate uterine contraction and initiate labor, and it acts on the breast to initiate milk rejection. Antidiuretic hormone acts on the kidneys to stimulate kidney tubular cells to reabsorb water from the forming urine back into the blood. Growth hormone it acts on the liver, muscle, bone, cartilage, and other tissues. It is an anabolic hormone that stimulates somatic growth, metabolizes fat, and spares glucose. Growth hormone growth promoting effects mediate indirectly by insulin growth factors. Thyroid stimulating hormone. It acts on the thyroid gland and it stimulates thyroid gland to release thyroid hormones. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. It acts on the adrenal cortex and it promotes release of glucocorticoids and androgens. Follicle stimulating hormone. It acts on the ovaries and testes. In females, it stimulates ovarian follicle maturation and production of estrogen, and in males, it stimulates sperm production. Luteinizing hormone and ovaries and testes, and it acts on the ovaries and testes. In females, it triggers ovulation and stimulates ovarian production of estrogen and progesterone. In males, it promotes testosterone production. Prolactin. It acts on the breast secretory tissue to promote lactation. Peptide hormones have anywhere between 3 to 39 amino acid covalent links together. ADH has 9 amino acids, AMP has 28, and glucagon has 29. Proteins have 40 or more amino acids covalent linked together. Insulin has 51. Growth hormone has 191. Prolactin has 199. Hormones regulate cell activity through the thyroid hormone, T4 and T3. Hormones regulate cell activity by binding to receptors and producing a hormone-specific response, by innervating or inactivating intracellular proteins, or by making new proteins to carry out cellular metabolism.